What is up, my friends, and welcome into another edition of the PHOI Phillies podcast, presented to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Welcome into another work week, another Monday afternoon here in Philadelphia as the weather turns for the better, for the most part, has turned for the better over the last couple of weeks. And the Phillies offense has certainly shown up as well over the last 5 days or so. We'll get into a lot of different stuff today. We only have a half an hour to do so, and we have a lot to talk about today. So we'll keep the pleasantries to a minimum. I hope you're well. I hope you had an excellent weekend, whether it was your Easter weekend or just a nice weekend out and about. I hope that you're well, and welcome back into the PHOI Phillies podcast. We will keep those pleasantries brief because we have a lot to talk about today with the Phils. Let's start with the Phillies and Marlins series. We'll get into previewing the Mets series. We have our Ace Hardware temperature check to see who's heating up or cooling down. And at the end of the show today, we will talk about one player in particular across Major League Baseball that I am thrilled, heartwarmed to see them take the field once again. We'll talk about that player at the end of the show today. Let's start with the Phillies and the Marlins series today, because you could almost predicate this to like a good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good in the Marlins series is the Phillies take 2 of 3 from the Marlins. They've won 4 of their last 7. That's a 4-3 record, but it sounds better when you say 4 of their last 7. Kind of get this into a good, bad, and the ugly. The good was the lineup, and especially the top of the lineup, and especially early in games. The good was the fact that this team offensively did exactly what it was supposed to do against starting pitching that has been underwhelming, to be nice about it, in the Marlins starting pitching. Now, the Marlins did start Sandy Alcantara on Friday, and obviously an incredible history, an incredible track record for Alcantara, but struggling this year since returning from Tommy John last season. Just hasn't quite found the same footing as the Marlins ace that he had in years past. And the Phillies took advantage of him and did an excellent job in the first inning of battling out at bats and really taking it to the Marlins pitching all weekend. And then in the second and third game against guys that were of lesser skills than Sandy Alcantara and Cal Quantrill and Connor Gillespie, they did the same thing. I mean, they did a really nice job of getting after starting pitching, especially early. And they did that against the Giants in the final 2 games of that series as well, where they did it against Robbie Ray. They did it against Jordan Hicks. I guess to a lesser extent did it against Justin Verlander, at least where they made him see some pitches. But over the last 5 games, the Phillies have really done an excellent job of making starting pitchers uncomfortable and making starting pitchers work early in the game, making them throw a lot of pitches early in the game and forcing them out of the game probably more quickly than their managers would like to. You saw 3 different times this weekend that the Marlins had to go to a long reliever because their starters didn't give them much length. Sandy Alcantara went 2. Cal Quantrill, I believe, went 4 1/3. And then Connor Gillespie yesterday, just to double check, just to be fair, I think went 4. But regardless of how many innings he pitched yesterday and how many innings that they pitched over the weekend, the Marlins were tasked. He went 5, excuse me. The Marlins were tasked with a lot of innings out of their long relief and out of their bullpen because the Phillies did an awesome job of running up pitch counts. And so I think that this can be pretty much directly sent back to, can be directly connected to a change that was made midway through last week. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to preface this by saying I spent all offseason talking about how Kyle Schwarber should be the Phillies' leadoff hitter for a multitude of reasons. For the short of it being, the Phillies win a lot of games when Kyle Schwarber is their leadoff hitter. For the longer of it to be, Kyle Schwarber broke a record last year of the most leadoff home runs in Major League Baseball history. He passed Alfonso Soriano for the most leadoff home runs in the history of baseball in a season. So he did that. They win. He has over 100 walks a year on average, over 40 home runs a year on average. On-base percentage is excellent. And the numbers tell you, or told you, that the Phillies' catalyst was at the top of the lineup, and it was Kyle Schwarber. And so it made a lot of sense with the Phillies' thought process of running it back, that the lineup would look kind of like it did over the first couple of weeks, especially against right-handed pitching, where Kyle Schwarber would lead off, Trea Turner would hit second, Bryce Harper would hit third, Alec Bohm would hit fourth, and then you'd figure it out from there. And the thought process was, at some point, the Phillies are going to have back-to-back lefties in their lineup with the way that it was constructed, with Kepler in left and Marsh in center. There's 5 lefties and 4 righties in the lineup. So it always was going to be a lefty-lefty back-to-back at some point. Now, my thought about that was always, I would want it to be either 2 really good hitters or Brandon Marsh at 9 and Kyle Schwarber at 1, because Kyle Schwarber had the ability to bounce things back if Brandon Marsh was unsuccessful as the 9-hole hitter. And that, to me, was the best course of action for this team. What we've learned over the last week or so is the lineup that they've run out, the lineup that Rob Thomson has used in 5 of the last 6 games, I think is probably the lineup that the Phillies should go with for most of the games moving forward, at least until things change and certain guys cool off a little bit. And that starts with Bryson Stott at the top of the lineup. Bryson Stott has reached base safely in 5 out of his last 6 starts since moving to the leadoff spot. He has been a trendsetter, a tone setter for the Phillies' top of the lineup. The only time that he didn't lead off was the game against the Giants in which Robbie Ray started, because Robbie Ray is tough on lefties, and they wanted to get Stott off his feet that day and give Edmundo Sosa at bats. So Trea Turner led off, and Sosa played second. But over the last 6 games, Bryson Stott has led off, over the last 7 games, Bryson Stott has led off 6 times, and 5 of those 6 times he has led off the bottom of the first by getting on base. Whether it be a hit or a walk, he's led off the bottom of the first 5 of those 6 times successfully. But it's not just about getting on base for Bryson Stott. We've talked about this plenty. Bryson Stott has seen 4.72 pitches per plate appearance this season. Only Andy Pages has more, and he's at about 4.8 this season. Bryson Stott's success is predicated on him working counts, having success with 2 strikes, the ability to battle and wear a pitcher down and force a pitcher to come into the zone, make a mistake, be behind in the count, throw a fastball in the zone, and that's where Bryson Stott is able to do damage. Listen, he's not a power hitter. He's never going to be. Don't fool yourself into thinking that if you do believe that. I don't think most of you do. We know what Bryson Stott is. Bryson Stott is a get on, get over, steal a bag, cause some havoc on the base paths, have the ability to score on a sac fly, have the ability to score from first on a double, base hit to score from second on a base hit. But his ability to see pitches and work counts to begin a game, I think that's where he has the most success with this team. And because of that, the Phillies have put him in the leadoff spot, and I think he's there to stay, especially against right-handed pitching. Now, we'll see what happens when it's more lefty-heavy pitching, and the New York Mets this week are running out Tyler McGill, David Peterson, and Griffin Canning. So we'll see what happens with David Peterson. But my assumption is going to be Bryson Stott's going to lead off the next 2 nights. He's going to lead off against McGill. He's going to lead off against Canning. And then we'll see what happens on Wednesday afternoon. You might see Edmundo Sosa start at second, and Trea Turner leads off on Wednesday afternoon, and Bryson Stott gets the day off. But the numbers are undeniable since Stott has joined the fold as the leadoff hitter. Let me walk you back through the last couple of games for Bryson Stott. Yesterday, bunt base hit to begin the game. Play small ball. The Marlins had a shift on a lot of lefty. A shift because you're not legally allowed to shift anymore. The Marlins had a shift on a lefty where the third baseman was pulled way away from the bag. Bryson Stott drops down an excellent bunt, leadoff base hit to begin the game. Saturday, 7 pitches he sees. 7-pitch plate appearance results in a leadoff walk. Friday, he had a hard line out to begin the game. It was the only game of the last 6 that he didn't reach base successfully, but he saw 8 pitches and hit the ball hard off of Sandy Alcantara. Thursday, 4 pitches, leadoff base hit against Jordan Hicks. Wednesday, 4 pitches, leadoff base hit against Justin Verlander. You get my point. Bryson Stott has been excellent in the leadoff spot so far. And I think he's going to continue to be there, especially against right-handed pitching, not just because of all of this, but what he does for the rest of the lineup. The Phillies as a team, because of Bryson Stott, because of their plate discipline, because of their selectivity, that has been way better. They have walked more than every team in the league except the Chicago Cubs, who have 97, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, who they're tied with 96. And remember, the Cubs have played 2 more games than the Phillies have. They have walked more than every team in the league. Their plate selectivity has been so much better. Their chase rate's down. A lot of guys' individual chase rates are way down. They're swinging and missing less. Their selectivity has been excellent, and I think they're seeing more pitches due in part to that, but also because of Bryson Stott at the top of the lineup. But it's not just about how many pitches they're seeing, because they're seeing 4 per plate appearance as a team, and that includes with Alec Bohm in the lineup, who's not seeing a lot of pitches. Only the Twins, the Orioles, and the Dodgers see more per plate appearance as a team. But what this does is extend innings, and it extends the first inning specifically. The Phillies at one point forced 3 consecutive starters to throw 30 or more pitches to begin the game. Robbie Ray threw 39, Jordan Hicks threw 35, Sandy Alcantara threw 30. 3 consecutive games in which they forced starters to throw a ton of pitches to begin the game. And I think Stott in the leadoff spot has been a big play of this. It's a big portion as to why they've been successful. But it's not just about seeing pitches with Stott in the leadoff spot. What he's done is allow the Phillies to provide Bryce Harper with protection. And this goes back to where this is the differentiator between where I talked about Kyle Schwarber leading off and Kyle Schwarber hitting 4th. And this is where I go hand up. I was wrong. I admit that so far in the season, my thought process was flawed, or at least wasn't the right one compared to what the Phillies are currently doing. Bryce Harper's been in desperate need of protection in the 4-hole from anybody in the lineup. It was JT Realmuto a couple seasons ago, but not your traditional cleanup hitter. They tried Alec Bohm at the 4 spot, and Alec Bohm had a really successful season last year, but in the early portions of the season, he was struggling, and so they had to get him out of the 2 and the 4 spot, or the 3 and the 4 spot, excuse me. So there was a need for protection in the lineup for Bryce Harper in the 4 spot, and so you put Bryson Stott at 1, you're able to slide Kyle Schwarber into the cleanup spot, which is where a lot of people have asked for him. It wasn't my thought, but a lot of people have asked for Kyle Schwarber to be your traditional cleanup hitter. Power, drives in a lot of runs, change the game with one swing of the bat. You know Kyle Schwarber, what Kyle Schwarber does. And the reason that Kyle Schwarber has been so successful in protecting Bryce Harper, and the reason that Bryce Harper has been so much better over the last 9 games or so, which is where kind of fits into the timeline of Kyle Schwarber sliding into the 4-hole, is because Kyle Schwarber's lefty-proof. Kyle Schwarber's numbers against lefties are ridiculous this year. They were great last year, and they're great again this year. And so when you have that lefty-lefty thing, it provides you some protection against left-handed pitching that the Phillies maybe wouldn't have had in other spots of back-to-back lefties. Kyle Schwarber's so darn good against lefties that it's helped Bryce Harper out. Harper's now hitting .267 against lefties, and his OBP is closing in on .375. He has 5 RBI because he started off really struggling against left-handed pitching. And I think we could say, to be fair, like Harper had a rough patch in that second week of the season, where I don't think he was seeing the ball particularly well, but he's been so much better in the last 9 games. He's hit in 8 of 9. He's driven in a run in 5 of his last 6. And those struggles against lefties early in the season have started to fade away a little bit. And again, as I said, he's hitting almost .270 against lefties now. And I think that plays a factor because of that is because Stott is leading off and Kyle Schwarber is hitting behind him. And so all of this has worked over the last week, and I expect it to continue to work, especially against right-handed pitching, where they're grinding out at bats, their plate discipline has been better, and then you can go to the middle third of your lineup. Nick Castellanos has been a revelation with plate discipline. Nick Castellanos got down 0-2 in an at-bat. I forget if it was Saturday or Sunday, but he got down 0-2 in an at-bat, and last year he would have been buried. He would have swung and missed over the next breaking ball that he saw, and that would have been the end of the at-bat. But he spit on a couple of breaking balls, fouled off a couple of pitches, forced the opposition to come back in the zone against him, and he had a two-out, 2-strike base hit that drove in a run. And the change in Nick Castellanos' plate discipline, the change in his mental, I think all of this plays together in like a fluid motion that continues this train of one to the next to the next. And the Phillies' plate discipline has just been so much better as of late. And I think it is in due in part because of the way that they've been able to construct their lineup. And so I don't know how long this thing lasts in terms of like getting to starting pitching early. The Phillies are going to face 3 really good starting pitchers this week. They face Tyler McGill tonight, David Peterson tomorrow, Griffin Canning tomorrow, David Peterson on Wednesday. And all of the Mets starting pitchers have a 3.4 ERA or better. Their starting rotation, their bullpen, their pitching as a whole has been really, really good to the beginning of the season. They have the best team ERA across baseball, and it's almost a half run better than the next team in the San Diego Padres that they're better than. We'll see what happens this week, but I have to tip my cap to the Phillies lineup for what they've been able to do over the last week or so. All right, we're going to get to the bad in just a second, because there is bad, and I'm not going to hide it, and I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. There is bad to talk about, and you know what it is. We'll do that on the other side with our Ace Hardware temperature check. But first, let's pause for just a moment, and let me tell you about some of our friends here at PHOI. Speaking of Ace Hardware, our Ace Hardware Home Services are the place to get your home repairs done. You know Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks, but did you know they're also the place with the helpful hardware home service team? That's right. No matter what you need done in your house, Ace is the place to get that job done and done correctly. The summer months are coming in. It's starting to get warmer. It was 80 this weekend. It's going to be nice in the 70s. You say, oh, I got the windows open right now, but you know summer's coming. 90s are coming. 95 is coming. The humidity is coming. So if you've got an air conditioner that needs fixing, don't wait any longer. Head on over to acehardwarehomeservices.com and set up your appointment to get your air conditioner fixed. But it's not just AC. It's not just HVAC, whatever the case may be. Leaky pipe, plumbing, heating, cooling, a faucet that you said you've been wanting to fix for 6 months now but haven't gotten around to it. Anything that you need fixed, anything that you need done right, I can't recommend our friends over at Ace Hardware Home Services enough, because they're bringing the helpful that you see in the store home to your front door. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. And while we're at it here on the PHY Phillies podcast, let me tell you about our friends over at Ashley. Ashley has some incredible spring savings. And as the spring weather is blooming, as I just mentioned, low prices are blooming, and you can spring into saving at Ashley Home Furniture. Save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms. And the best part is, have all of your gear delivered to you for free. I mentioned earlier in the week or last week that they Ashley delivered a couple of pieces for my bedroom furniture set over the last couple of weeks. They were in my house for, 7 minutes, and they were in and out. They were professional, they were courteous, but they knew that they were going to get the job done quickly, and that's exactly what they did. So don't wait. Save on top brand mattresses and get free delivery, setup, and removal by springing into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit. Minimum purchase is required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information. All right, welcome back to the PHOI Phillies podcast here on PHLY. Tyler Zulli here with you for another 15 minutes or so. This show is, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. And yes, I said we were going to do this. Let's do this. Let's get into our Ace Hardware temperature check. It is brought to us by our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services, where we're checking in each week on a player that is, or a group that is either heating up or cooling down. And the cooling down is unfortunate, but it is the Phillies bullpen this weekend. This weekend was taxing on the Phillies bullpen for a couple of different reasons. So the Phillies had to go to their bullpen early. Rob Thompson had to go to his bullpen early on Saturday because Taijuan Walker, who, by the way, pitched pretty well again in his 4 innings and has been really good outside of one really bad inning over his first 4 starts. Rob Thompson had to go to his bullpen because Taijuan Walker exited the game after 56 pitches with a shoulder issue that they said was not, going to be a problem, really more precautionary than anything else. But I think it was an unfortunate scenario because the Phillies had jumped out to such a big lead. It would have been great to allow Taijuan Walker to go 6 innings. Even if he gave up a couple runs in the 5th or the 6th, they had such a commanding lead on Saturday. You would have felt comfortable using Taijuan Walker for an additional inning or so and not having to tax your bullpen. And so the Phillies bullpen comes in and Matt Strahm pitches well, and they're able to get out of the jam, able to kind of cruise a little bit through the first, couple of innings of the bullpen innings after replacing Taijuan Walker. And then Jordan Romano comes into the game. And friends, it was 11 to 4. And I was trying to just go back and find the numbers exactly. It was 11-4 because Carlos Hernandez gave up three hits and 3 earned runs in an inning pitched, and he's another guy that I don't think a lot of people are trusting right now. And let's talk about him for a second before we get to the Jordan Romano experience. Carlos Hernandez is a guy with really good stuff, but it hasn't quite played the way that he would like to over his career. And I think the Phillies took a chance on him. He was DFA'd by the Royals. Dave Dombrowski likes a guy with stuff, right? High velocity, good breaking ball. You're going to take a chance on a guy like that because bullpens are fluky. They're kind of like weird, right? Year in and year out, you never know what you're going to get. You get a handful of guys across baseball that are stalwarts. The Phillies have a guy in that vein in Matt Strahm, but you never know what you're going to get from year in to year out, right? And the Phillies took a chance on a guy whose numbers aren't as good as his stuff has indicated, and he's really struggled, I think, for a bulk of the season. He now has a 9 ERA. His whip's well over 2, but he gave up 3 earned runs and really kind of struggled in his inning. Joe Ross came in, gave up 3 hits, but was able to get two innings pitched scoreless. So the Phillies head into the top of the 9th with a 10-4 lead. An elephant in the room. I see your comment there. Say that Joe Ross is really kind of blah. I don't necessarily disagree with you that he's kind of meh, but Joe Ross was brought in to be a swing guy. He was brought in to be a multi-inning guy. He's started in the past. He's pitched out of the bullpen. My expectations of Joe Ross were kind of what my expectations were of Jose Ruiz last year, which were limited. 5th and 6th inning guy, mop-up duty when needed. If the Phillies are crushing or getting crushed, that's where you'd see Joe Ross come in and give you an inning, maybe give you 2. And so far, I think he's been used in that regard for the most part. Again, was forced into action maybe more than you would have liked because of Taijuan Walker exiting the game. And then comes the Jordan Romano experience. Jordan Romano, through 2/3 of an inning, gave up 6 hits and 6 earned runs. And Jose Alvarado, who I think Rob Thompson desperately wanted to keep out of this game, had to come in and pitch. And I think Rob Thompson desperately wanted to keep Jose Alvarado out of this game for multiple reasons. Didn't want to use him in what was a 6-run game or a 7-run game at the time. You don't want to use your closer and high-leverage guy in that situation because you shouldn't need to. And he knew that his bullpen had been taxed over the last couple of days and was taxed in this game. And I think he was hoping to be able to use Jose Alvarado the next day, maybe even longer, because the bullpen was going to be taxed in this one. But Romano gave up a lot of hard contact. Romano gave up a 3-run home run and really just didn't have anything. And after the game, he said, I really liked my stuff. Because here's the thing. You could say, wow, he was throwing 98, 99. The velocity was better. The slider was a little bit better. But the slider was turning over in the zone. And that was my problem early in the year was Romano wasn't turning over the slider unless he was turning it over in the zone. He turned it over in the zone quite a bit. And the fastball, while the velocity was better, felt a little flat. And the Marlins jumped on him because I don't think he had a lot of stuff. And Markel Futz, whether he's tipping his pitches or not, I'm going to maybe try to take a look at it. And it's hard to do from your TV. It's much easier to see as a hitter than it is from your TV. But whether he's tipping his pitches or not, he's not fooling anybody. And for the most part, he hasn't fooled anybody all year. He now has a double-digit ERA, and the Phillies have the second worst team bullpen in all of baseball. Only the Nationals, who we saw in the first weekend of the year, and their bullpen stinks, has a better bullpen, a worse bullpen ERA than what the Phillies do. The Phillies have a 5.81 bullpen ERA. They have the 6th worst whip as a bullpen in all of baseball at a 1.55. They've given up the 5th most home runs, or tied for 5th most home runs as a bullpen in all of baseball with 11. They don't walk a lot of hitters. They're at 27. They're closer towards the bottom than they are to the top. But they're also not striking out a lot of hitters either. They have the 6th fewest strikeouts as a bullpen with 67. I think right now you're seeing a bullpen that doesn't have a lot of swing and miss capability. I trust Jose Alvarado in that regard. I trust Matt Strahm inherently. And now he's not a huge swing and miss guy. He generates some strikeouts and he's able to pitch really in any count. And I trust him inherently. But he's a guy that does well when he generates weak contact and he's throwing in on righties' hands and he's getting Chase out over the plate. But if Matt Strahm doesn't strike a hitter out, it's not the end of the world for me because I trust him when hitters are putting the ball in play. They don't have a lot of strikeout stuff right now in their bullpen, whether it's front end or back end of their bullpen. And so I just don't trust this bullpen a whole lot right now outside of Alvarado and outside of Matt Strahm. Jordan Romano said after the game, well, my velocity was up. I felt like I was throwing the slider for strikes. And it's like, yeah, sure, dude. Yeah, absolutely. You were throwing the slider for strikes. You were throwing meatballs right over the heart of the plate, but you were throwing the slider for strikes. Sure you were. Yeah, it's great, buddy. And the velocity was up. And I'm glad to see the velocity was up because it was down early in the year. He was at 94. And I expected him to sit more 95, 96. So I'm glad to see he maxed out at 99. And he sat a lot of 97. And so I'm glad to see that the velocity was up, but the stuff wasn't there. And then you have to use Jose Alvarado in a spot that you don't want to use Jose Alvarado in. And then yesterday, the Phillies, Jesus Luzardo leaves with a lead, and Jesus Luzardo was great again yesterday. I mean, talk about a steal of an acquisition so far by Dave Dombrowski. And I liked Starlin Caba a lot. I think Starlin Caba could come up to the majors and be like a Gold Glove defensive shortstop right away. But I don't know if he's going to translate as a hitter. He's got good bat-to-ball skills, doesn't strike out a lot, good plate awareness. But I don't know what he is as a major league hitter. He's still years away. And I wasn't a huge Amarian Boyd fan. So I thought this was a steal of a trade by Dave Dombrowski to get Jesus Luzardo for at least the next 2 seasons. It was excellent again. And then the Phillies turn it over to the bullpen and Orion Kerkerking struggles. Now, I trust Orion Kerkerking, I think, more than the average fan does. And my one thing with Orion Kerkerking is I think he desperately needs to be able to throw a third pitch. Because when he's not getting ahead in counts, because guys aren't chasing the sweeper, and I bet you his numbers are indicative of that. I haven't looked them up, but I will do it kind of really quickly on the air. I would bet you that Orion Kerkerking is getting less chase this year, and gosh, it's way less chase. So in 2023, obviously very small sample size, when he first made his big league appearance, he made 3 starts. He got 31% chase rate on, or 3 appearances, excuse me. He got 31% chase rate because the sweeper was just unseen at the time. Last year, he was at about 41st percentile, 28%. It was still good, but it was below average, but it was much better. This year so far, in his 9 appearances, he's in the 9th percentile. And I trust that will get better. But the problem that I am seeing kind of reoccurring with Orion Kerkerking is he's falling behind too many counts. He trusts his sweeper, and he should. It's a really, really good pitch. But he trusts his sweeper, and he's not throwing it for enough strikes where guys are just sitting on it early in the count, and then they're forcing him to come into the zone. And whether that means they're forcing him to come into the zone with his fastball or to throw the sweeper as a get-me-over pitch, that's where he's getting hit and getting hit hard. But the funny thing is, he's not giving up a ton of hard contact for the most part. He's in the 98th percentile of hard contact. His average exit velocity is 83.3%. I think he's getting semi-unlucky, and then he's getting beat with the deep ball, or then he's getting beat with runners on second and third. He's giving up the sac fly. So I think it all plays a part where I still trust this guy. I think he's got really good stuff. As I made mention, I think he needs to develop a third pitch. I think he needs something with vertical break, whether it be a changeup or a sweeper. I think he needs something with vertical break to play along with the sweeper, to kind of give arm action on the fastball, but to play along with the sweeper. And then that late break on the sweeper, which when it does burn off the outer edge, guys aren't sure if it's going to be the splitter or the changeup down and away that maybe looks enticing, and it's hard to pick up on arm action. So of the guys that have struggled so far this year, I still trust Orion Kerkerking the most. I think his stuff is the best. Romano, I think, has really, and he was treading in the right direction for a couple of outings, but I just don't think he's turning over on the slider nearly enough. and then he's throwing too many meatballs up in the zone. The other guys, Ross is a low leverage pitcher who struggled and pitched well on Saturday, but struggled on Sunday. Hernandez, really good stuff, doesn't trust his stuff enough, and he's too inconsistent. And then, Ruiz is fine for what he is, and I like the signing of Ruiz last year, but the problem is I think they're relying upon him to do more. And this always, of course, brings us back to the conversation of, should they have brought in another arm or retained another arm if you were feeling a certain way about Jeff Hoffman or Carlos Estevez, that I think, is a fair conversation to have. So that's our Ace Hardware temperature check conversation. Cooling off the bullpen basically in its entirety, sans Jose Alvarado and Matt Strahm. All right, we're going to pause really quickly before we wrap things up here. We are going to pause for just a moment and tell you about some more of our friends here at PHOY. Excuse me, pardon me. Let me tell you about some of our friends here at PHOY, and that, of course, are our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the only secondary ticket app that I recommend for a multitude of reasons. I've been using Game Time now really since I started here. And sometimes, you talk about a product that you've used once or twice and you feel comfortable, speaking about it. I've used Game Time so many times to buy last-minute Phillies tickets, to buy concert tickets, that I feel comfortable talking about Game Time basically without even looking down at my notes. And I've used it in multiple cities. I've used it in Philly. I've used it in Baltimore when I went down to Camden Yards with my dad for Father's Day last year. I know I'm going to use it again if I decide to go back to Baltimore or down to D.C. for the next D.C. series with the Phillies. Whatever the case may be, I feel comfortable telling you why Game Time is the best app, and it's because of so many different reasons, but my favorite thing is the 3D seat view. Listen, I know how to navigate Citizens Bank Park. I think you probably do too. If you're a Phillies fan, especially if you're a Phillies fan in the area, you've been going to games for a while, you know how to navigate Citizens Bank Park. But what happens if you take a road trip to Pittsburgh or up to New York? You want to see the Phils this weekend and you want to take a ride up to Flushings. Have you been to Citi Field before? I certainly haven't. So if you want to see an opportunity to look exactly where your seats are going to be, you want to use the Game Time 3D seat map and 3D seat view to tell you exactly what your seats are going to look like. You can kind of guesstimate, are you going to be in the sun? Are you covered? Are you in a section that has a good sight line? Are you behind a pole, right? Do you want to sit behind the foul pole? Probably not. Maybe you move over a section and have a better view. So whatever the case may be, whether it's comedy, concerts, theater, ball game, whatever it might be, Game Time has the best ticket protection in all of eyewear. Geez, I'm telling you about my friends. Some of my other friends has the best protection in all of ticket purchasing because they offer you things like job loss security, or event cancellation security. And all of these things tell you exactly why Game Time is the best app. So what I want you to do, if you're looking for tickets, maybe you're heading up to Flushings this weekend, or you want to take an even more exciting road trip and head on over to Chicago to go to the hallowed grounds of Wrigley Field over a nice weekend in late April, early May. Whatever you're planning on doing, get on over with the Game Time app because you can sign up, use the promo code PHLY, and your first purchase, you will get $20 off your first purchase. They offer you the lowest price guarantee, and they're giving you $20 back if you are a new customer as well. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code PHLY for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let me tell you about Empire today. Speaking about being smart with your finances, if you're looking for new flooring, you're looking for carpet or hardwood or whatever the case may be, you want to trust the pros who get the job done right. And when you're thinking about flooring, the pros, the experts, are our friends over at Empire today. We've all tried to shop in the big box stores and felt a little underwhelmed with the help that you've been provided because maybe you're pulling somebody from outdoor or you're pulling somebody from hardware or whatever the case may be. You're not dealing with a flooring expert. At Empire, that's all they do is flooring, and you're dealing with a flooring expert every single time you chat with Empire, whether it be online or in person. So why is Empire today the best bet for your floors? They live and breathe flooring. You can pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space, and you can see how it looks in your house with your furniture with an in-home estimate. And the best thing about the in-home estimate, you're going to get precise measurements taken, and they'll have all of your questions answered, so you don't have to worry about what ifs or maybes or hypotheticals. You're going to know exactly what you're looking at when Empire comes in for your home appraisal, if you will. So you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing, plus you can schedule your installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better when you stay at home. PHLY listeners can receive $350 discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit Empire today/PHLY for full details. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast, presented to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat: Ray Schumacher, Pat Ryan, K-Red, Elephant in the Room, R Seeker, everybody, Markel Futz, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Pat Ryan, wholeheartedly agree. I know, Pat, you've been listening to the show for a while, in whatever iteration it's been, and I have been saying that since June. They should have extended Jeff Hoffman last June. They should have done it in August. They should have done it in the offseason, and letting Jeff Hoffman walk was a mistake. I think it was a mistake. And I know that they were trying to do the one-year thing to free up some monetary flexibility next year and the following season, but the Phillies contracts actually put them in a decent spot next year monetarily. And Jeff Hoffman signed a deal that, is kind of backloaded, where he's making less money this year than he would have the next two seasons. The Phillies would have been able to, I think, fit in that money, because I think it's like $13 million the next two seasons. I think they would have been able to fit in that money with the contracts that are coming off the books and how you're going to shape your contracts next year a little bit. Whether or not you re-sign Ranger Suarez or not, I think they have some monetary flexibility next year. Not re-signing Jeff Hoffman was a mistake. It really, really, really was a mistake. And I think that's not just like podcast host Tyler, that's like fan Tyler. I was a huge Jeff Hoffman fan. I think what he provided was stability and consistency, and I think it was just an absolute mistake. All right, as we wrap up today's show, I want to leave you on a positive note. And the Phillies and Mets get set to take on a 3-game series this weekend. I know we didn't talk much about it. The Phillies will send Aaron Nola to the mound tonight looking for his first win, and then it will be Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler. Really excellent pitching matchups this week so far. A good test for the Phillies against the Mets, who kind of have played a similar style to the Phillies, where they struggled with runners in scoring position early in the year. Their offensive numbers are about league average. They've kind of played much better offensively over the last couple of weeks. The Phillies have had more outbursts recently, which is why I think their offensive numbers look a little bit better than what the Mets do. But the Phillies and Mets kind of trended in the same direction with runners in scoring position and things like that. But the Mets pitching staff has been so good this season so far. Team 2.3 ERA. Just an unbelievable start to their pitching staff. So we'll see what happens. Oh, by the way, speaking of the Mets, want to tell you tomorrow, pregame show. We haven't done a pregame show yet this year, but pregame show tomorrow, starting at 6:40. We'll take you from 6:40 up until first pitch. Postgame show as soon as the game is over. And the one that I'm the most excited about, our PHLY Phillies watch along is back. We are going to be joined by a bunch of members of PHLY. And in fact, I have the schedule for you. We will be joined in the second inning by our head of content, Jamie Lynch. In the fourth inning by PHLY Flyers, Charlie O'Connor. In the fifth inning, PHLY Sixers, Devon Givens. In the seventh inning, PHLY Eagles, Zach Berman. And in the eighth inning, PHLY Flyers, Bill Matz. So we'll be talking with all of our PHLY staff. Myself, you come along for the ride. Andrew Frazier will be with us as well. Really, really excited about our first watch along of the season. All right, I wanted to end today's show on a positive note. And I wanted to shout out one player in particular who took the mound yesterday for the first time in 681 days. And I wanted to shout out Boston Red Sox reliever Liam Hendriks, because Liam Hendriks has been through a lot over the last 3 years or so. Back in December of 2022, Liam Hendriks was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and went through chemo and radiation and was declared cancer-free, but missed a majority of 2023, returned in 2023, made a couple of appearances, and then had an elbow issue that led to Tommy John surgery. Missed all of 2024. Rehab was a real struggle for Liam Hendriks. Ended up missing all of 2024 and had not pitched in basically 2 full seasons. Had not pitched for 681 days. And he made his return to the mound yesterday for the Boston Red Sox against his former team, the Chicago White Sox. And I just wanted to shout out Liam Hendriks, because Liam Hendriks, first of all, that battle alone between battling cancer and then having Tommy John and having struggles with that and returning to form and questioning at 36 years old, would you be able to return to the performances that you put together as an all-star with the White Sox, has to be not only physically draining, but mentally draining. And so I tip my cap to Liam Hendriks just on the surface. But Liam Hendriks is also well-renowned and well-known across baseball as one of the good guys in baseball, has done a lot of charitable work, has been an excellent advocate for the LGBTQ community, has been an awesome member of the communities that he has been in, whether it be in Chicago and now picking that up in Boston. Liam Hendriks is a well-respected person, well-respected philanthropist, a community guy, I should say, and a well-respected teammate. And so I am so happy for Liam Hendriks to see him get back on the mound and take the mound for the first time in well over 2 years. So tip of the cap to you, Liam Hendriks. Wanted to end today's show with a shout out to you because you are an inspiration for a lot of people, have been a really, really awesome guy to follow and an excellent pitcher to boot throughout his career. So that's how I wanted to end the show today, was with a tip of the cap to him. Really cool to see him back on the mound. Really cool that you joined us today. Thank you so much for everything that you do for us, everybody in the chat, whether it be Ben Ace, Pat Ryan, K-Red, Ray Schumacher, Elephant in the Room. Who else was here? Who else did I miss? Don't want to miss anybody out. R. Seeker, Markel Futz, everybody that was here. Thank you so much for everything that you've done to keep the PHY Phillies show going. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. Big thank you to Joey for producing today's show. As always, he's done an excellent job over the last couple of weeks. Picking up a live show as a new producer is a difficult task. This industry is a train that does not stop, and you have to learn on the fly, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to, learn as you go. But Joey has done an excellent job of kind of seamlessly taking over as the producer of this show. So big thank you to Joey. Everybody, if you don't mind, drop a thumbs up on the show for Joey for the work that he's done over the last couple of weeks. We will talk to you tomorrow. Again, really excited for our live in-game, live pre-game, live post-game show. There will be no pre-recorded VOD tomorrow because we are going to do our show tomorrow. We'll have some pre-recorded stuff on Wednesday. We'll be live again on Friday. And remember, starting next week, we go live 3 times a week. We're adding Wednesday to the fold. This, by the way, was the last non-hour Monday show. So we'll be an hour Monday, an hour Wednesday, and an hour Friday. Really excited for that expansion. We'll have Bob Cooney each Monday. We'll have Jim Salisbury each Wednesday. And I'm really excited for the expansion of this PHY Philly show over the last couple of weeks. So big thank you to everybody who tuned in. We will talk to you tomorrow, 6:40 for the pregame show. And, of course, first pitch, 7:10 against the Mets beginning tomorrow night. Talk to you then right here on the PHY Phillies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.
Thank you, Shel.